Perhaps you've heard criticism of modern praise songs for being repetitious. And surely we must avoid what Jesus called vain repetitions in Matthew 6, verse 7, according to the King James Version. He put it this way: when you pray or sing, after all, singing is simply prayer with a tune, do not heap up empty phrases, as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. They won't. That's Jesus' point. Prayer must be thoughtful. But thoughtfulness doesn't exclude repetition. Jesus himself began his Sermon on the Mount, his first address or at least his first formal address to his disciples, with the repetitious formula, "Blessed are the, for they shall," in the Beatitudes of Matthew chapter 5. Why did he do that? Well, he knew that repetition is sometimes exactly what is needed. What do those who have recently converted to a hated and oppressed religion most need to hear? That they will be blessed for their difficult obedience. And so Jesus utilizes repetition. This is the logic of Psalm 136. 26 times the writer extols God's steadfast love. Why reiterate God's love so profusely? Well, because it's the most important thing we need to know. The call to action in the psalm is to give thanks to the Lord. That call is explicit in verses 1, 2, and 3, and verse 26. It's implied in the rest of the verses of the psalm. And the reason is this: what we need to do is worship God who loves us unendingly. We need to hear of God's love again and again and again. And the writer isn't using vain repetition. He isn't putting forth a version of God's love that's sentimental. What he fills in between all of the repetitions of God's love is the proof of his love, as evidenced by a million actions of God's goodness. The writer points us to three categories of activities that prove God's love. First, he created the world, verses 4 through 9. When believers consider God's world, they see signs of their understanding Father. Second, he redeemed Israel from slavery and homelessness through the exile and conquest of Canaan, verses 10 through 22. Israel found a home in the land of promise because of God's loving, mighty acts. In the writer's summary, action verbs abound. God struck, brought, divided, overthrew, led, killed, and gave. Third, God continues to lovingly provide, as we see in verses 23 through 26. He remembers us in our lowest state. He rescues us from our enemies. He gives food to everyone. What is the point of this brisk survey of God's mighty acts? Well, to assure us that his steadfast love endures forever. If we know that, let us give thanks to the Lord. Here's Psalm 136. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who alone does great wonders, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who by understanding made the heavens, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who spread out the earth above the waters, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who made the great lights, for his steadfast love endures forever. The sun to rule over the day, for his steadfast love endures forever. The moon and stars to rule over the night, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt, for his steadfast love endures forever, and brought Israel out from among them, for his steadfast love endures forever. With a strong hand and an outstretched arm, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who divided the Red Sea in two, for his steadfast love endures forever, and made Israel pass through the midst of it, for his steadfast love endures forever, but overthrew Pharaoh and his host in the Red Sea, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who led his people through the wilderness, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who struck down great kings, for his steadfast love endures forever, and killed mighty kings, for his steadfast love endures forever. Sihon, king of the Amorites, for his steadfast love endures forever. And Og, king of Bashan, for his steadfast love endures forever, and gave their land as a heritage, for his steadfast love endures forever. A heritage to Israel his servant, for his steadfast love endures forever. It is he who remembered us in our low estate, for his steadfast love endures forever, and rescued us from our foes, for his steadfast love endures forever. He who gives food to all flesh, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of heaven, for his steadfast love endures forever.